Moonshine and Myslickis, January 22nd, 2013. As far back as I can remember, moonshine always played a role in our family life. More so for Dad than anyone else, but somehow it seemed that we were all involved in one way or another. Distilling moonshine was, and is, against the law. But if you don't have money to buy liquor, there are other ways. To conceal the fact that we had moonshine, which was clear right through, Mom would put a frying pan on the wood cook stove and start adding sugar. As the sugar gently burned, it would turn dark brown in color. When this was added to the moonshine, the liquid would take on the appearance of rye whiskey. So when Mom or Dad found an empty whiskey bottle along the road, and there were many, they would bring it home, thoroughly wash it, and put the brown moonshine in the bottle, and voila! Cheap rye whiskey was now available to the unsuspecting visitor. Before I can remember, Mom tells the story of how she and Dad made a fresh batch of moonshine in the fall. It was kept in the house for a while, but once the snow came, Dad figured it would be better to hide the jugs out in the snow. There is enough alcohol content in moonshine that it will not freeze and break the jug, so it is perfectly safe to store it in the snow. As each jug would get emptied, Dad would bring another jug in, so there was always some in the house. On a particularly cold day, Dad brought in one jug and hid it in his favorite spot, next to the attic access door, which was close to the chimney stove and chimney. That evening, one of Dad's not-so-favorite neighbors came for a visit and asked if he had a little drink. Of course, Dad said he had nothing in the house to drink. A short time later, they heard a big bang and liquid started dripping down the outside of the stovepipe. Apparently, the glass jug had heated too quickly and broke, releasing its contents to leak through the nearest hole in the ceiling. When we lived on Roy Johnson's farm north of town, Mom and Dad again brewed up a 45-gallon barrel of mash. I believe they put in potatoes, sugar, grain, and yeast. The smell was unmistakable as the mash worked away. Once the mash was ready, they would start the distillation process. 2 or 3 gallons of mash would be put into a cream can, which was stopped with a big wooden plug. One end of a long coil of copper pipe was pushed into a hole in the plug, and the coil was run through a tub of cold water. When a camp stove was placed under the cream can, the alcohol, which had a boiling point lower than water, would evaporate, go through the copper pipe, condense when it came into contact with the cold water, turn into a liquid, and drip out the other end of the copper pipe into a glass jug. If Dad wanted a particularly strong batch of moonshine, they would run the liquid through a second time, and the drips coming out of the copper tube would burn with a blue flame if ignited in a teaspoon. When Dad made a new wooden plug this time, it was a little too large and didn't fit properly into the top of the cream can. So when the camp stove was lit and the alcohol started evaporating, the pressure buildup blew the plug out of the cream can, and everything in the barn was covered in mash. Fortunately, no one was hurt, but the barn stunk of partially fermented potatoes and sugar for a long, long time. If one of us got sick, Dad got out the moonshine. He'd fill a shot glass half full, add some black pepper, and give us some medicine. This would help us sleep better, and in the morning, after a good night's rest and sweating, we would usually feel somewhat better. One cold winter morning, the family was going visiting with the horses and sleigh. Stan and I got the team harnessed up and brought the horses and sleigh to the front of the house. We went in to warm up before leaving. When we came out a few minutes later, the horses and sleigh were gone. We could see them heading down the road. Stan and I took after them on foot, but they had too big a head start. As the horses headed straight west, we ran to town, just over 1 mile, and asked Johnny Shepherd to help with his car. Finally, we caught up to the team heading down the highway to their old home. Stan jumped out of the car, climbed into the box, and stopped the horses. When we got back home, Dad warmed us up with a good shot of moonshine. Long after we left home, Dad continued to make moonshine. In fact, he would always bring a bottle to Don and Louise as a gift. When he came over for a visit, he would clear his throat and ask for a little drink. Even when away from home, Dad ensured that moonshine would not be too far away.